My name is Avery Cole. I'm 32 years old, and this is how I burned my life to the ground to destroy the person who tried to bury me alive. It was raining the day my world officially ended. The courthouse steps were slick under my shoes, and the sky looked like it had been holding back tears just for me. I stood there, shivering, rainwater dripping from my hair into my eyes, clutching two papers that felt heavier than bricks. In my left hand, the final divorce decree. In my right, the eviction notice taped to my apartment door just 2 hours earlier. My fingers were numb, but not from the cold. It was the kind of numb that sinks into your bones when you've been stripped bare of your home, your money, your dignity. She thought I'd stay quiet. I whispered to no one, my voice trembling but steady. She thought I'd disappear. I looked up at the storm clouds, rain blurring the courthouse clock. She forgot storms don't beg for permission. A couple hurried past, glancing at me like I was a cautionary tale they didn't want to catch. I didn't care. I wasn't here for sympathy. I was here because this was the day I decided I wasn't going to die politely. It started with a text message I wasn't supposed to see. I can still remember the way my stomach twisted when my phone lit up at 2:13 a.m. Her name on the screen, followed by words that made my skin crawl. Words meant for someone else, someone she'd been meeting in hotel rooms while I sat at home. Trust in her. That text was a crack in the glass of my life. Small at first, invisible to most people, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. And eventually, the whole thing shatters. I didn't just lose my wife. I lost my business partner, my best friend, my future. And when the dust settled, she had taken almost everything. The savings I'd worked a decade to build, the home I designed from scratch, and the reputation I'd bled for in a city where trust is currency. People think betrayal is loud. It's not. It's quiet. It's someone you love sliding the knife in so slowly you don't even feel it until they twist. And I'll admit, for a while, she won. I stayed silent. I hid. I let her tell the story first, paint me as the villain in her perfect little performance. But silence is a dangerous thing. It builds pressure. It stores storms. And the thing about storms is they don't just pass. They break things. It ended with me standing in a room full of people, watching her lose everything she stole from me, piece by piece, while I didn't move a muscle. You ever love someone so much you take a bullet for them and then realize they were the one loading the gun? I grew up in a town so small it didn't even have a traffic light. Just one gas station, a diner where everybody knew everybody's business, and cornfields that stretched so far you could almost believe the world ended past them. I was the oldest of three, the built-in babysitter, the extra set of hands when the bills piled up, the one who pretended she didn't hear my parents whispering late at night about whether they could keep the lights on. We didn't have much. I learned early that if I wanted something, I had to work for it. By 15, I was bussing tables at the diner after school, and by 17, I'd picked up a second job stocking shelves at the grocery store. I wasn't just saving for college. I was helping buy groceries, pay the heating bill, keep my younger brother in soccer cleats. I didn't resent it. In fact, I wore it like armor. Responsibility made me feel safe. It meant I had control. Then came Julia. She transferred to my high school halfway through freshman year, a city girl with glossy black hair, the kind of confidence that made teachers bend rules for her, and a laugh that made people turn their heads. I don't even remember how we started talking. I just know that by the end of that first week, she'd made herself a permanent fixture in my life. Where I was cautious, she was bold. Where I kept my head down, she held hers high. We balanced each other. She pulled me into her light, and I grounded her when she flew too close to the sun. People used to call us the twins, even though we looked nothing alike. We shared clothes, secrets, and the kind of unshakable trust you only get when you grow up together. We went to different colleges, but stayed inseparable. Late night calls, road trips, and the kind of inside jokes that made other people roll their eyes. When I graduated, degree in marketing in hand, Julia was the first person I called. That same year, I met Ethan. He was everything my small town heart thought was out of reach. Tall, sharp suit, the kind of smile that could talk a nun into sinning. A successful real estate broker with a habit of making every person in the room feel like they were the only one there. He saw me, not the responsible one or the safe choice, me, and I fell hard. Julia loved him instantly, said we made sense, that we balanced each other like she and I did. When Ethan proposed 2 years later, there was no question who my maid of honor would be. Julia stood beside me in a pale blue dress, holding my bouquet and smiling like she was just as happy for me as I was. For a while, life was good, really good. Ethan and I bought a small house on the edge of the city, just big enough for the dog we adopted and the dinner parties we loved to host. I climbed the ladder at my marketing firm, taking on bigger clients, earning a reputation for being the one who could fix messy projects. Julia came over for Sunday brunch almost every week. She was part of the furniture of my life, movie nights on the couch, wine in the kitchen while I cooked, the kind of easy comfort that felt permanent. People joked we were like a sitcom, the charming husband, the best friend who was practically family, and me, the glue that held it all together. And maybe that was my role. I've always been the safe one, the reliable one, the fixer, the peacekeeper, the person people come to when their world is falling apart. But who do you go to when it's your world burning? The truth? People don't fight for the safe one. They lean on her, but they don't catch her when she falls. But I didn't think about that back then. Back then, I believed in my life, in Ethan's hand in mine, in Julia's laughter in my kitchen. I believed that if you were loyal, honest, and gave people your whole heart, they'd give you the same in return. Looking back now, I realized that was the most dangerous lie I ever told myself. I was supposed to be on a flight back from a client meeting, but I decided at the last minute to catch an earlier flight home. I wanted to surprise Ethan. I wanted to be there when he walked through the door, to see the smile on his face, and maybe share a glass of wine, just the two of us. The front door was unlocked. That wasn't unusual. Ethan was terrible at remembering to lock up. But as I stepped into the house, something caught my eye. A scarf, a silk scarf, deep red, hanging off the back of the kitchen chair. It didn't make sense. Julia had a scarf just like that, but it was mine. It was one I'd let her borrow months ago. Maybe she came by to pick it up, but still, the sight of it there, on the chair, felt off. I shook my head, told myself I was being ridiculous. She must have just dropped by while I was gone. Julia came over all the time, sometimes borrowing things, sometimes for nothing more than a cup of coffee. It wasn't uncommon for her to be here when I wasn't, especially if I was on a business trip. But as I set my bag down on the kitchen counter, the suspicion wouldn't leave. Days passed. I tried to push the feeling away. Maybe I was overthinking things. But then, during a client meeting, my phone died. Completely out of nowhere, no warning. As I scrambled to find a charger, I realized I'd left my spare charger at home. I cursed under my breath, then remembered Ethan's iPad. He had it with him that morning, but it was sitting on the coffee table when I left. I hadn't thought much of it. He'd probably left it there by accident. I grabbed it, planning to check my email quickly before my next meeting. When I unlocked the device, something strange hit me. The screen flickered, then popped up to a text message thread. Ethan and Julia. My heart froze. I should have closed it immediately, but I couldn't. The words caught my eyes like a hook, dragging me deeper into a nightmare. Ethan, God, she's so boring. I almost feel bad for her. Julia, ha, she's too trusting. She thinks I'm her best friend. So easy. Ethan, yeah, she has no idea. I can't wait for the weekend. I'm going to make sure she never suspects a thing. Julia, I'll be careful. We don't want her catching on. There were more. So many more. Messages I couldn't tear my eyes away from. Ethan, I love the way you touch me. No one else makes me feel this way. Julia, I love you too, but I'm not leaving her for you. Don't expect that. Ethan, who says I want you to? This is about me, not her. Julia, just keep her happy. She's so naive. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was collapsing under the weight of it. I thought I was going to suffocate. The room spun, the words blurring before my eyes. It was like my whole life had just fallen away in an instant. It had been happening for over a year, long before I ever found that scarf. The messages, the lies, the betrayal. And I had been so oblivious. I couldn't look at the iPad anymore. I threw it down on the table and stood there, my hands shaking, my heart pounding. I didn't even hear the door open. Ethan stepped inside, his briefcase in hand, his expression light, like nothing had changed. He didn't see the way my body was rigid, how I was trembling from head to toe. I didn't say anything at first. I couldn't. My mouth felt dry, my body frozen. The silence between us felt like an entire lifetime of words I couldn't bring myself to say. Ethan walked over to me, placing his hand gently on my shoulder, as if nothing was wrong. Hey, you're back early, he said, with that charming smile that used to make my knees weak. I could have screamed. I could have slapped him. I could have thrown everything in his face and asked how long he'd been lying to me. But instead, I just stood there. I didn't speak. Not one word. A switch flipped in my mind. This wasn't about heartbreak. This wasn't about the gut-wrenching pain of being betrayed by the two people I trusted most in the world. This wasn't about my heart being shattered. This was about justice. This was about making them both pay. So I stayed silent. I let the weight of the truth sink in. And when Ethan tried to kiss me, I didn't pull away. I didn't even flinch. I just waited. Because I knew that whatever happened next, he wouldn't get away with it. Not this time. In the weeks after I found those messages, the world didn't explode. It just shifted quietly. Julia stopped answering my calls. At first, she'd text back an hour later with an excuse. Sorry, busy with work, or phone died. But eventually, she stopped replying at all. No brunches, no movie nights. The chair she used to claim at my kitchen counter sat empty, and the silence it left behind was louder than anything. Ethan changed too. He wasn't the man who used to kiss my forehead when I walked in the door. Now, his eyes skimmed past me like I was part of the furniture. He picked fights over nothing. The dishwasher not being loaded right, the dog hair on the couch, my work schedule. He'd leave for late showings and come home smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. It was a slow bleed. And the worst part? We still looked normal from the outside. To everyone else, we were the picture of stability. Then, the rumors started. A mutual friend pulled me aside at a networking event, eyes full of pity. I don't want to get in the middle of anything, but Julia's been saying you're not doing well, that you've been paranoid, a little unstable. I laughed at first because the idea was so absurd, but over the next few weeks, I heard it again and again, always through whispers, always through someone else. Julia was rewriting my story in real time, painting me as a woman unraveling. And Ethan, he didn't defend me. If anything, He leaned into it. The final straw at work came 2 months later. I'd been courting a huge client for my marketing firm, the kind of account that could define my career. We were days away from signing when they suddenly went with a competing agency. No warning, no explanation. I didn't find out the truth until a junior account manager I trusted pulled me aside. You didn't hear this from me, she whispered. But Julia's new boyfriend works at that firm. Ethan gave her your pitch deck. They knew exactly how to undercut you. That night, I sat in my car in the office parking lot long after everyone had left, staring at the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was sabotage, and it was deliberate. When I told my family, they gave me the same well-meaning but infuriating advice. Let it go, Avery. Don't sink to their level. Move on. Move on? Letting go would mean letting them win, and that wasn't going to happen. So I stopped crying and started documenting. Every text, every email, every strange bank notification I'd ignored in the haze of heartbreak. I pulled bank statements, credit card charges, business transaction records. That's when I found it. A joint investment account in Ethan and Julia's names, opened 8 months ago. Funded with $82,000 taken directly from my business accounts. The air went out of me, not just because of the number, but because they'd been confident enough to leave a trail. That night, Ethan came home late, whistling as he hung his coat. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, forcing my face to stay neutral. "How was your day?" he asked, like we were still a normal couple. "Quiet," I said, and it was. Too quiet, because somewhere deep inside me, something was shifting. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was calculating. The next morning, I called an old colleague, someone I trusted with my life, and asked if they'd consider buying my share in the company. I told them I needed out, fast, no details, just urgency. Within 2 weeks, the papers were signed. I transferred the money into an account only I could access. I moved my personal savings to a separate bank. I changed passwords. I stopped leaving my devices unattended. And then I hired a private investigator. Discreet, experienced. The kind of man who could blend into a crowd and disappear before you realized he'd been there. While Ethan and Julia thought they were tightening the noose, I was loosening theirs, one knot at a time. I still played the role of the wounded wife, quiet, withdrawn, unstable, just as they'd described me. I let them think they'd broken me. I even let Ethan believe I didn't suspect a thing. Because the truth was, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was planning. And planning is dangerous when the person you've underestimated finally decides to stop being the safe one. The anger I'd been drowning in was starting to take shape. Sharp edges, clean lines. I stopped imagining screaming matches or public confrontations. I started imagining courtrooms, headlines, the look on Julia's face when the mask finally came off. The night before Ethan's birthday, I sat in bed while he slept beside me, scrolling through the latest batch of photos the investigator had sent. Ethan and Julia at a hotel. Ethan and Julia at dinner. Ethan and Julia depositing envelopes of cash into that joint account. Every image was a puzzle piece. And when the picture was complete, I wasn't just going to win. I was going to make sure they couldn't rebuild what they destroyed. For years, I'd been the fixer, the one who smoothed things over, who made life easier for the people I loved. Now, I was going to dismantle them, piece by piece. The invitation arrived on creamy white cardstock, embossed in gold. You are cordially invited to the engagement celebration of Julia Bennett and Ethan Cole. The date was 3 weeks after my divorce had been finalized. My first instinct was to tear it in half. My second was to laugh. And then I saw the opportunity. The note included a handwritten message from Julia herself. Let's bury the hatchet. It would mean a lot for people to see we're all on good terms. Translation: come smile for the cameras while we gloat. I RSVP'd yes. The night of the party, I arrived in a floor-length black satin gown, my hair in a sleek twist, diamonds at my ears. I looked expensive, controlled, untouchable. The kind of woman no one pities. Julia's chosen venue was one of the city's most glamorous hotels, a ballroom glittering with chandeliers and champagne fountains. 200 people in designer clothes milled about, sipping cocktails and taking photos in front of the floral archway. Julia spotted me from across the room. Her eyes flickered, surprise, then triumph, as she swept over in a silver dress that screamed, "Look at me." "Avery," she gushed, kissing the air beside my cheek. "You look stunning." "So do you," I replied smoothly. "And congratulations. This must be a dream come true." Ethan joined us, looking tan, smug, and oblivious. "Glad you could make it," he said, as if the last year hadn't been a war I was pretending to lose. Dinner was served. Toasts began. Julia and Ethan stood at the front of the room, basking in the applause as a friend tapped the microphone. "And now, a few words from the happy couple." They beamed, hands intertwined. Julia began to speak, thanking everyone for being part of their journey. I waited until the applause died down. Then the lights dimmed. The massive screen behind them flickered to life. At first, people thought it was part of the program. A slideshow, maybe. Then the first text appeared. "Ethan, she's so boring. I almost feel bad for her." "Julia, she's too trusting. So easy." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Another message, then another. Photos followed. Ethan and Julia outside a hotel room, kissing in a parked car, depositing envelopes of cash at the bank. Gasps, whispers, the scrape of chairs as people leaned forward, phones already recording. Then came the bank records. Side by side on the screen, the audience saw every transfer from my business accounts funneled into the joint investment account under Ethan and Julia's names. The dates, the amounts, the signatures. The room went deathly still. Julia's face drained of color. Ethan took a step toward me, but stopped when he realized every eye in the room was watching. "This isn't funny," Julia said loudly, her voice shaking. "Oh, I'm not laughing," I replied, my tone even. And then the ballroom doors swung open. 2 uniformed police officers walked in, followed by a plainclothes detective I recognized. He'd been the one to take my statement last week when my private investigator handed over the final evidence package. "Ethan Cole," one officer called out. Ethan froze. "What is this?" "You're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and grand larceny," the officer said, stepping forward. "Julia Bennett, you'll need to come with us for questioning regarding conspiracy and accessory to financial crimes." Chaos erupted. Guests scrambled out of the way, whispering and filming. Julia was sputtering, denying everything. But the detective was already producing a warrant. Ethan's face had gone a shade of gray I'd never seen before. As they cuffed him, he finally looked at me, really looked at me. And for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. "You did this," he hissed. I tilted my head. "You did this to yourself. I just helped you get the audience you deserved." The officers led them both out through the side door, the crowd buzzing like a hive around me. People stared. Some whispered my name. Some smiled. I didn't stay to explain. I didn't need to. The story would tell itself. But before I left, I leaned toward Julia, who was still shrieking as the detective tried to calm her. "By the way," I murmured in her ear, "this party, the venue, the catering, The champagne, all of it was paid for with your money, or rather, my money, the money you stole. Her mouth dropped open. I bought this venue last month, I continued. The deposit went straight from that joint account you thought I didn't know about. So, technically, I glanced around at the gawking guests. You threw yourself a party to celebrate your own downfall. How poetic. I walked out into the cool night air, the sound of chaos fading behind me. My car was waiting. As I slid into the back seat, I could see the ballroom windows glowing above, shadows darting back and forth inside. For months, they'd tried to paint me as the unstable one, the naive one, the woman who wouldn't fight back. They were half right. I didn't fight. I didn't wait for the full fallout. The second the last image flickered off the projector screen and the room erupted into shouts, gasps, and the metallic clatter of champagne flutes hitting the floor, I stepped away from my table. People were still craning their necks, whispering my name, phones up and recording, but I didn't care. Ethan's voice rose above the chaos, shouting my name like I was the one on trial. Julia stood frozen, pale, her hands gripping the edge of the table so tightly I thought the wood might splinter. The police were already moving in, their dark uniforms cutting through the glittering crowd. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Outside, the cool night air hit me like the first deep breath after years underwater. My heels clicked against the pavement as I walked away from the venue. My venue, technically. Every flower arrangement, every champagne bottle, every ridiculous crystal centerpiece had been paid for with Julia's stolen money. She'd been toasting herself with her own crime all night. I smiled, not a wide, triumphant grin, just the kind of quiet smile that belongs to someone who finally has the ground back under her feet. Because here's the thing about revenge. It's not about rage. Rage burns hot, fast, and out of control. What I felt was colder, cleaner. It wasn't about screaming at them or even about making them hurt the way they'd hurt me. It was about reclaiming what they'd tried to take. My voice, my dignity, my future. In the weeks that followed, I sold the house, closed the last joint account, packed up what little I still wanted, and moved to a city where no one knew my name. I rented a small apartment with white walls and big windows that let in the morning light. I started over. With the money from selling my share in the company and a few strategic investments, I launched a women-owned consulting firm, small at first, but growing faster than I dared to hope. I built a team of women who'd been underestimated, dismissed, or talked over in boardrooms, and I made sure every single one of them had a voice that could not be ignored. I also started therapy. At first, it felt like weakness, like I was admitting the damage they'd done. But therapy didn't make me weak. It made me dangerous because it made me whole. Julia tried to reach me once, a letter from prison, her handwriting looping across the page like nothing had happened. She wrote about missing me, about the good times, about how we were still family no matter what. I didn't open it. I burned it in my kitchen sink, watching the paper curl in on itself until it was nothing but ash. She lost the right to my voice the moment she used it against me. As for Ethan, I don't know where he is now, and I don't care. The last I heard, the fraud charges had gutted his career. The man who used to walk into a room like he owned it now owned nothing. Sometimes, people ask me if it was worth it. If all the planning, the risk, the quiet months of pretending were worth the price. I tell them this. Every morning, I wake up in a life that's mine. Not the life they built for me, not the one they tried to tear apart. Mine. And when I walk into my office, hear my team laughing, see their confidence growing by the day, I know the answer. It wasn't just worth it. It was necessary. The camera is steady. No music, no dramatic lighting, just me, sitting in a plain chair, hands resting lightly in my lap. I look straight into the lens, not smiling, not angry, just calm. You know, I say, my voice low but steady. People talk about storms like they're nothing but destruction, like the only thing they leave behind is ruin. I pause, letting the silence breathe. But storms, they cleanse. They rip out the rot. They drown the lies. They tear away everything that pretends to be solid until all that's left is the truth. That's the part no one talks about. How sometimes the only way to rebuild is to watch the old thing fall apart. I lean forward slightly, my eyes locked with the viewers. They prayed for calm because they thought storms were dangerous. They wanted peace, order, predictability. They thought calm was safety. They thought calm was control. Another pause. A faint flicker of a smile touches my mouth. The kind that isn't about joy. It's about knowing something they don't. But calm lets the rot grow. Calm hides the cracks. Calm is where the liars thrive. My hands tightened just slightly in my lap. I wasn't their calm. A beat of silence. I was their storm. The screen holds my face for a moment longer. Eyes steady, expression unshaken, before fading to black.